What if the very struggle you have been engaging in, the pushing, the forcing, the desperate reaching toward your good, has been the single greatest barrier standing between you and fulfillment of everything you have ever desired? Pause for a moment and allow this question to settle into the depths of your being. Consider the possibility that the universe has been waiting, with infinite patience, for you to stop fighting long enough to receive what has already been prepared for you. Consider that your good has been seeking you with the same intensity with which you have been seeking it, and that the only thing preventing your glorious reunion has been the tension in your own mind, the clenching of your own spirit, the inability to simply relax into the feeling of having what you desire. Tonight, you stand at the threshold of a revelation that has transformed the lives of countless individuals across every station of life, every circumstance, every seeming impossibility. This is not theory spoken from ivory towers. This is living truth, demonstrated in the experiences of men and women who discovered that the moment they stopped struggling and began to assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, the entire machinery of the universe reorganized itself around their belief. If you have found your way to this teaching, it is not by accident. There is a wisdom within you that has guided you here because you are ready to understand that manifestation is not about strain but about surrender, not about force but about feeling, not about endless effort but about entering into the consciousness of already having received. Before we journey deeper into the sacred instruction, I invite you to do something that signals to your own subconscious mind that you are serious about transformation. Subscribe to this channel if you have not already, for by doing so you align yourself with a continuous stream of wisdom that will reinforce these principles day after day. Press the like button now as an act of faith, as a declaration that you are ready to receive. And in the comment below, type these words, "I now relax and receive." Let this be your covenant with the infinite, your signal to the deeper mind that a new chapter has begun. Now, let us begin. There is a principle so simple, so gentle, so utterly contrary to everything the world has taught you about achievement, that when you first hear it you may wonder if it can possibly be true. The principle is this: your subconscious mind responds not to effort but to impression, not to struggle but to assumption, not to desperate wanting but to peaceful having. When you relax into the feeling of already possessing what you desire, you activate creative forces that no amount of physical striving could ever set in motion. Consider how you learned to float upon water for the first time. If you thrashed and fought and tensed every muscle in your body, you sank. The water, which was perfectly capable of supporting you, could not do its work while you resisted its nature. But the moment you relaxed, the moment you stopped fighting and allowed yourself to be held, you discovered that you were buoyed up effortlessly. The water had not changed. Your relationship to it had changed. You had stopped working against the very force that was trying to help you. So it is with the infinite power that operates through your subconscious mind. This power is never absent. It is never diminished. It is never too busy attending to others to respond to you. It is as present with you in this moment as it has ever been with any prophet, any saint, any master of the inner life. But it can only work for you to the degree that you stop working against it. And the way you work against it is through tension, through doubt, through the anxious grasping that communicates to the deeper mind a message of lack rather than abundance. The great teachers of ancient times understood this truth. In the book of Isaiah, we read these remarkable words, "In quietness and in confidence shall be your strength." Notice that the prophet does not say your strength shall be in busyness. He does not say your strength shall be in worry. He says it shall be in quietness and confidence, in the calm, assured inner state that knows the work is done before any outer evidence appears. I once observed a woman named Eleanor who came to understand this principle in the most practical of circumstances. Eleanor had been widowed unexpectedly, left with 3 children and a house whose mortgage seemed an impossible burden. 4 months she had struggled, working extra hours, lying awake at night calculating figures that never added up to hope, praying with a desperate tone of one who believes they are shouting into an empty sky. And the more she struggled, the worse her situation became. It was as though the universe itself was reflecting back to her the chaos of her own mind. Then one evening, something shifted. Eleanor was sitting in her kitchen, too exhausted to struggle anymore, when a phrase she had once read came back to her. "Let go and let the higher power work." In that moment of complete surrender, she did something that felt almost irresponsible given her circumstances. She stopped trying to figure it out. She closed her eyes and began to imagine what it would feel like if she were completely financially secure. Not how it would look, not what she would do, but how it would feel in her body, in her spirit, in the very cells of her being. She imagined the feeling of relief, of security, of peaceful confidence. She did not ask how or when or whether help would come. She simply relaxed into the feeling of it already being so. Within 3 weeks, a series of events unfolded that she could never have orchestrated with all her planning and effort. Her late husband's business partner contacted her to inform her of an insurance policy she had not known existed. A neighbor whose house she had occasionally helped maintain passed away and left her a bequest that covered exactly 1 year of mortgage payments. A new position opened at her workplace with hours that perfectly accommodated her children's school schedule. Not one of these events was caused by anything Eleanor did with her hands. Every one of them was set in motion by something that happened in her mind, the decision to relax into the feeling of already having received. This is not magic in any mystical or superstitious sense. This is the lawful operation of a principle as reliable as gravity. Your subconscious mind is a connecting link between your individual awareness and the infinite intelligence that governs all things. When you impress upon this deeper mind a feeling of lack, of desperation, of anxious wanting, you create a pattern that manifests as continued lack in your outer experience. But when you impress upon it a feeling of abundance, of fulfillment, of peaceful possession, you create a pattern that must, by the very nature of the law, manifest as abundance in your visible world. The Bible speaks of this with perfect clarity. Therefore I say unto you, what things soever ye desire, when ye pray, believe that ye receive them, and ye shall have them. This is from the Gospel of Mark, chapter 11, verse 24. Notice the sequence carefully. It does not say believe that you will receive. It says believe that you receive. Present tense, accomplished fact, done now. This is a relaxation into feeling that we are speaking of. It is a shift from hoping to having, from wanting to being, from future tense to eternal present. But here we must address a question that arises in the mind of nearly everyone who encounters this teaching for the first time. How does one genuinely feel wealthy when the bank account is empty? How does one truly feel healthy when the body is in pain? How does one sincerely feel loved when loneliness is a constant companion? Is this not mere pretense, mere psychological self-deception, mere wishful thinking dressed in spiritual clothing? The answer lies in understanding the difference between forcing a feeling and allowing a feeling. You are not asked to convince yourself of something you do not believe. You are not asked to paste a false smile over genuine suffering. You are asked, instead, to enter into a contemplation of what the fulfilled state would feel like, to visit that inner state as you might visit a beautiful garden, to let yourself be there in imagination until the feeling becomes familiar and natural. Consider how easily you do this in directions that harm you. You can lie in bed at night imagining a feared conversation with perfect vividness. You can feel your pulse quicken, your stomach tighten, your breath grows shallow, all in response to an event that has not happened and may never happen. Your body does not distinguish between the imagined scene and a real one. Your subconscious mind does not stand outside and observe that this is merely fantasy. It responds to the feeling as though the event were occurring now. What we are doing, then, is taking this natural capacity, this power you have been using unconsciously against yourself, and turning it in a new direction. Instead of imagining disaster with great feeling, you imagine fulfillment with great feeling. Instead of rehearsing poverty in the theater of your mind, you rehearse wealth. Instead of practicing the emotion of loneliness, you practice the emotion of loving connection. The subconscious mind will respond to these deliberate impressions just as readily as it responds to the accidental impressions you have been making all your life. The key is relaxation. You cannot force the subconscious to do anything. It is not a servant that responds to commands barked in a tone of desperation. It is more like a sleeping giant that can be awakened only by the gentle persistence of repeated suggestion. The more you relax, the more impressionable the subconscious becomes. The more you struggle and strain, the more you remain locked in the conscious mind, where no creative power resides. This is why the drowsy state just before sleep is so extraordinarily powerful for this wake. In those moments when the conscious mind is releasing its grip, when the chatter of daily concerns grows quiet, when you stand at the threshold between waking and dreaming, the door to the subconscious swings wide open. What you feel and assume in this state has tremendous creative power. It bypasses the critical faculty that during waking hours might argue, this isn't realistic, or you're just fooling yourself. In the sleepy state, the deeper mind receives the impression directly, without resistance, without analysis, without doubt. Let me share with you the experience of a young man named Samuel, who discovered this principle while facing what seemed to be an insurmountable obstacle. Samuel had trained for years to become a concert pianist. Music was not merely his career, but his very identity, the language through which his soul expressed itself. Then an accident crushed several bones in his left hand. The doctors were sympathetic but clear. He would never again have the dexterity required for professional performance. For months, Samuel lived in darkness. The future he had imagined for himself had been erased, and he could see nothing to take its place. He tried affirmations, repeating positive phrases with grim determination, but they seemed hollow against the reality of his crippled hand. He tried visualizing himself playing, but the images brought only pain because they reminded him of what he could not have. Then Samuel stumbled upon a crucial distinction. He stopped trying to visualize himself playing and instead focused solely on the feeling he associated with playing, the feeling of being fully expressed, of channeling something greater than himself, of bringing beauty into the world through his unique gift. He would lie down each night, let his body relax completely, and then gently call up this feeling without any concern for how it might manifest. He asked nothing of the universe except the feeling itself. He relaxed into it as though sinking into a warm bath. What happened next could only be described as miraculous, though it operated according to perfect law. Over the following year, doors opened that Samuel had never known existed. A music therapy program recruited him to work with children. He discovered he could teach in a way that transmitted not just technique but the very soul of music. A composer friend asked him to consult on a film score, recognizing that Samuel's ear and understanding were unmatched. Eventually, Samuel found himself at the center of a musical life richer and more fulfilling than anything his original career path had promised. The feeling he had focused upon had materialized, not in the form he had initially expected, but in a form far more suited to who he had become. This is a principle that cannot be overstated. The subconscious mind responds to the feeling, not to the form. When you relax into a feeling of abundance, you are not dictating how that abundance must appear. You are not writing a prescription that the universe must fill exactly according to your specifications. You are opening a door to infinite intelligence, which knows far better than your conscious mind what form your good should take. An infinite intelligence often has in store for you something far greater than what you, with your limited perspective, could have imagined. Proverbs chapter 23, verse 7, declares a truth that has been recognized by wisdom traditions around the world. For as he thinketh in his heart, so is he. Notice the precision of this language. It does not say as a man thinketh in his head, in his intellect, in his conscious calculations. It says as he thinketh in his heart, which is to say, as he feels at the deepest level of his being. Thought charged with feeling is creative. Thought without feeling is merely mental activity, no more powerful than rearranging furniture in a house that is about to be torn down. This is why so many people repeat affirmation for years without result. They speak the words while feeling their opposite. They say, I am wealthy, while feeling poor. They declare, I am healthy, while dwelling in the consciousness of sickness. The words go into the conscious mind, but the feeling goes into the subconscious. And the subconscious always wins, because it is the subconscious that is connected to the creative principle that governs all manifestation. The practice I am inviting you to embrace is therefore not one of speaking but of feeling, not of declaring but of dwelling, not of hoping but of having. Each night before sleep, allow your body to become completely relaxed. Let the tension drain from your muscles one by one. Release the concerns of the day as though setting down a heavy bag you have been carrying for miles. And then, in that gentle twilight state, call up the feeling of having received what you desire. If it is financial abundance you seek, do not imagine stacks of currency. Do not visualize bank statements. These are merely symbols, and they can actually create resistance in the mind if they seem too far from your current reality. Instead, feel what financial freedom feels like. Feel the relief of having more than enough. Feel the security of knowing you are provided for. Feel the generosity that comes when you are able to give freely without fear of lack. Let these feelings wash through you as though they were already the constant condition of your life. If it is health you seek, do not focus on the absence of symptoms. Do not rehearse medical reports. Instead, feel what vibrant aliveness feels like. Feel the energy moving freely through your body. Feel the joy of waking with anticipation for the day. Feel the deep peace of trusting the infinite wisdom that governs every cell of your being. Relax into this feeling as though it were your permanent home. If it is love you seek, whether romantic partnership, deeper friendships, or reconciliation with a strange family, do not imagine specific faces or script specific conversations. Feel what it feels like to be loved. Feel the warmth of genuine connection. Feel the security of knowing you are valued. Feel the tenderness that arises when you are truly seen and appreciated. Let yourself dwell in this feeling until it becomes more real to you than the loneliness that may currently characterize your outer experience. There is a story told of a merchant in the ancient world who sought the advice of a sage because his business was failing. The sage asked him what he thought about most often. The merchant replied honestly that he thought about his debts, his angry creditors, and his fear of public humiliation. "There is your problem," said the sage. "You have been planting seeds of failure every day while expecting a harvest of success. Begin to think instead of prosperity, of abundance, of grateful customers and overflowing storehouses. But do not merely think these thoughts. Feel them as though they were already true." The merchant protested that this seemed like self-deception. How could he feel prosperous when his shelves were nearly empty? The sage smiled and offered this wisdom. When you plant a seed, do you stand over the soil weeping because you cannot see the tree? Or do you water the ground with confidence, knowing that the seed is doing its invisible work? Your feeling is the water. Your sustained assumption is the sunlight. Trust the law. It has never failed. The merchant began the practice. Each morning and each night, he would close his eyes and feel what it would feel like if his business were thriving. He did not deny his circumstances, but he stopped feeding them with his imagination. He stopped rehearsing disaster. He began instead to rehearse success, allowing himself to feel prosperous even while his conscious mind still saw lack. Within a few months, everything changed. New customers appeared as though drawn by an invisible force. An opportunity arose to supply goods to a wealthy household that had previously overlooked him. Former debtors paid what they owed unexpectedly. The business flourished beyond his previous expectations. Was this magic? No, it was law. The same law that had been creating his failure while he felt failure now created his success because he felt success. Nothing had changed in the basic mechanism. Only the direction of his feeling had changed. And that made all the difference. Let me speak now of persistence, for this is where many stumble. The feeling must be maintained. The assumption must be sustained. You cannot enter the consciousness of wealth one night and then spend the following 3 weeks in the consciousness of lack, expecting the one night to outweigh the 3 weeks. The subconscious is impressed by repetition and emotional intensity. What you feel most often and most strongly is what becomes your dominant pattern. What you feel occasionally and weakly is merely a passing visitor that leaves no permanent mark. This does not mean you must be perfect. It does not mean that a moment of doubt will undo everything. The subconscious is forgiving in this regard. It responds to the overall direction of your inner life, not to isolated instances of fear or frustration. But it does mean that you must commit to the practice with genuine sincerity. It means that the feeling of having received must become your regular mental home, not a vacation spot you visit once and then abandon. The Gospel of Matthew teaches, "Ask, and it shall be given you. Seek, and ye shall find. Knock, and it shall be opened unto you." In the original language, these verbs are in continuous present tense. They mean keep asking, keep seeking, keep knocking, not with desperation, not with anxiety, but with the calm persistence of one who knows that the door will open because the law is reliable and the power is infinite. You may be wondering how long it takes for outer manifestation to follow in assumption. This question, while natural, arises from a misunderstanding of the principle. The manifestation begins the instant the feeling is genuinely accepted by the subconscious mind. From that moment forward, circumstances begin to rearrange themselves, opportunities begin to form, people begin to be moved, even though you may see nothing of this on the visible plane. The outer world is always the last to change because it is the effect, not the cause. But change it will, as surely as a harvest follows a planting. The timing varies based on factors that only infinite intelligence fully comprehends. Sometimes a manifestation comes within days. Sometimes it takes months. Sometimes what appears is better than what was originally imagined, which requires what seems like a longer preparation period. Your task is not to determine the timing. Your task is to maintain the feeling and leave the how and when to the deeper wisdom that knows far more than you could possibly know from your limited vantage point. A woman I once knew, a painter named Vera, learned this truth after much suffering. Vera had spent years trying to break into the art world, sending her work to galleries, attending exhibitions, networking with collectors, doing everything the practical advisors recommended. Yet nothing happened. Her painting sat in her studio, unseen and unsold, while artists with less talent and less dedication seemed to find success easily. In frustration, Vera decided to abandon the chase entirely. She gave up the goal. She stopped strategizing. She decided that if she was meant to be a poor, unknown artist, she would accept it and paint simply for the love of painting. But in this release, something unexpected occurred. Free from the desperate wanting, Vera began to paint as she never had before. She painted not to impress galleries, but to express her soul. And in the evenings, without any conscious intention at first, she would sit with a cup of tea and allow herself to feel what she imagined success as an artist must feel like, not the fame or the money, but the feeling of being understood, the feeling of connecting with others through her work, the feeling of purpose fulfilled. Within a year, a collector who happened to visit a friend's home saw one of Vera's paintings, which the friend had purchased directly from Vera for a modest sum. The collector was captivated. He sought Vera out, purchased everything in her studio, and introduced her to galleries across the country. Her work began to command prices she had never dreamed of. Today, Vera's paintings hang in museums and private collections around the world. Did the success come because Vera worked harder? No, she had been working hard all along. Did it come because she networked more skillfully? No, she had actually stopped networking. It came because she changed her feeling. By releasing the desperation and relaxing into the feeling of fulfilled artistry, she created an internal condition that the external world could not help but reflect. This is a great secret hidden in plain sight throughout all spiritual literature. The kingdom of heaven, we are told, is within you, not coming someday, not available only to the chosen, but within you now, accessible in this very moment through the portal of feeling. When you learn to relax into the consciousness of heaven, which is simply the consciousness of fulfillment, of wholeness, of abundance, you find that heaven begins to express itself all around you. The outer conforms to the inner. The world rearranges itself to match your assumption. You have been given a gift beyond measure, the gift of imagination joined with feeling. These two, working together, form the creative mechanism through which your personal reality is shaped. Until now, you may have used this mechanism unconsciously, creating by default, manifesting whatever happened to be suggested by circumstances, by fears, by the opinions of others. But from this night forward, you have the knowledge to use this mechanism deliberately. You can choose what you feel. You can decide what assumption to sustain. You can relax into the consciousness of any state you desire and allow the creative law to bring it forth into visible expression. The responsibility is yours. The power is yours. The choice is yours. No external condition, no matter how seemingly fixed, can prevent the operation of this law. No circumstance, however long-standing, can resist the sustained pressure of a new feeling impressed upon the subconscious mind. What you have been experiencing until now is simply the outpicturing of your past assumptions. What you will experience tomorrow is being determined by what you assume and feel tonight. Let these words settle deep into your being. Let them bypass the skeptical chatter of the conscious mind and sink into the receptive soil of your subconscious. You are not here by accident. You did not encounter this teaching by chance. Something within you, wiser than your conscious intellect, drew you to this moment because you are ready to stop struggling, ready to stop forcing, ready to relax into the feeling of already having received everything your heart desires. The universe is not withholding your good from you. It has been offering it all along, waiting only for you to open your hands and receive. And you cannot open a clenched fist. You cannot receive while grasping. You must relax. You must let go. You must trust. And in that trust, in that peaceful assumption of the wish fulfilled, you will find that everything you have imagined begins to take form around you, not through struggle but through grace, not through effort but through alignment, not through force but through the irresistible power of feeling joined with faith. This is the beginning of your new life. This is a turning point you will look back upon and recognize as a moment everything changed. Take it seriously. Practice it faithfully. And watch and wonder as the life you have imagined becomes the life you live. And so we continue this sacred journey into the depths of a truth that, once understood, will never leave you. You have heard the principle. You have glimpsed its power through the experiences of those who have applied it. Now let us go deeper still, into the very mechanics of how this law operates, so that your practice may become precise, your faith may become unshakable, and your results may become inevitable. There is a phrase in the Psalms that illuminates the path before us with extraordinary clarity. The 23rd Psalm declares, "He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul." Consider the imagery here. Not rushing waters, but still waters. Not standing in anxious readiness, but lying down in green pastures. The soul is restored not through frantic activity, but through peaceful repose. This is a posture of receiving. This is a consciousness that allows the infinite to flow into expression through your individual life. The mistake most people make when they first learn of the creative power of the mind is to approach it as another form of work. They have been taught all their lives that achievement requires struggle, that success demands effort, that nothing worthwhile comes without strain. And so they bring this same mentality to their mental practice. They try to visualize with fierce concentration. They repeat affirmations through clenched teeth. They attempt to force the subconscious into submission as though it were an unruly servant that needed to be dominated. But the subconscious cannot be dominated. It can only be impressed. And it is most impressionable when the conscious mind releases its grip, when the body relaxes its tension, when the entire being enters into a state of peaceful receptivity. This is not passivity in the negative sense. It is not resignation or defeat. It is the active choice to trust, to let the deeper power do its work without interfering from the anxious intellect. I knew a man named Frederick who built a considerable fortune through what the world would call hard work. He had started with nothing, labored 16 hours a day for decades, sacrificed his health and his relationships on the altar of success, and finally achieved a level of wealth that most would envy. But Frederick was exhausted. His body was failing. His marriage had ended. His children barely knew him. He had the money, but not the life he had imagined money would bring. In his late years, Frederick encountered these principles and recognized with painful clarity what he had done wrong. He had achieved through force what he might have received through faith. He had pushed open doors that would have swung wide if he had simply knocked with confidence. He had struggled up mountains that he could have allowed to move themselves if he had possessed the understanding that could have been his from the beginning. Frederick began a new practice in his final decade. Each night, he would lie down, release all tension from his body, and feel what it felt like to be at peace, not to have more money, for he had plenty, but to be at peace. He felt what it would feel like to have time flowing gently rather than racing. He felt what it would feel like to have relationships characterized by warmth rather than obligation. He relaxed into these feelings with the same dedication he had once given to his business affairs. The transformation was remarkable to witness. Former associates who had experienced only his demanding side discovered a man of unexpected gentleness. His estranged children began to seek his company. His health, while never fully restored, stabilized in ways his doctors found surprising. Frederick often said that he learned more about true success in those final 10 years than in all the decades of striving that preceded them. He had discovered that relaxation was not the enemy of achievement, but its greatest ally. Let us examine more closely why this is so. The conscious mind, for all its wonderful capabilities, is extremely limited. It can hold only a few thoughts at a time. It can perceive only what the physical senses report. It can plan only based on information already known. The subconscious mind, by contrast, is connected to infinite intelligence. It has access to information your conscious mind could never gather. It can coordinate circumstances, arrange meetings, inspire ideas, and orchestrate events in ways that would seem miraculous if you did not understand that they are simply the operation of law. When you relax into the feeling of having received your desire, you are handing the project over to this infinite intelligence. You are saying, in effect, I have set the destination through my feeling. I now release the journey to a wisdom far greater than my own. This is not abandonment of responsibility. It is a highest form of responsibility, the recognition that your job is to determine the what and the why, while the how is determined by a power that can see what you cannot see and arrange what you could never arrange. The Gospel of Luke records words of profound comfort and instruction. Fear not, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Notice carefully what this says. It is not merely that the kingdom can be given to you if you own it. It is not that the kingdom will be given reluctantly, only after much persuasion. It is a Father's good pleasure, the delight, the joy, the eager willingness of the infinite, to give you the kingdom. The universe is not a miser hoarding its treasures. It is a fountain overflowing with abundance, seeking channels through which to pour its gifts. When you relax into the feeling of receiving, you become such a channel. You open yourself to a flow that has been waiting for you all along. There was a young woman named Clara who struggled for years with what she called bad luck. Every opportunity that seemed promising would fall through at the last moment. Every relationship that began with hope would end in disappointment. Every plan she made would be thwarted by circumstances beyond her control. Clara became convinced that she was somehow cursed, that the universe had singled her out for misfortune. When Clara first encountered the teaching of the subconscious mind, she was skeptical but desperate enough to try anything. She began the practice of relaxing into feeling, but her early attempts were contaminated by a long habit of expecting disappointment. She would try to feel successful, but underneath that surface effort was a deep assumption that this, too, would fail just like everything else. It was only when Clara recognized this pattern that she could begin to change it. She realized that her feeling of being cursed was itself the cause of her apparent curse. Her deep assumption of failure was being faithfully reproduced by her subconscious mind, which cannot judge whether an assumption is helpful or harmful, but simply manifests whatever is impressed upon it with feeling. Clara made a decision to address the root rather than the symptoms. Instead of trying to manifest specific outcomes, she focused first on changing her fundamental assumption about herself and life. Each night, she would relax and feel what it would feel like to be someone for whom things naturally worked out. Not through luck, not through external favor, but through an inner alignment with a good that is always seeking expression. She did not try to believe this. She simply practiced feeling it, allowing the feeling to become familiar, allowing it to become more real than her old story of misfortune. The shift was gradual but unmistakable. Clara noticed that her inner state began to change even before her outer circumstances did. She felt lighter, more expectant, more open to possibility. And then the circumstances began to change. An opportunity appeared, and this time it did not fall through. A relationship began, and this time it deepened rather than dissolving. The pattern of disappointment was being replaced by a pattern of fulfillment, not because Clara's external efforts had improved, but because her internal assumption had transformed. This illustrates a crucial point that must not be overlooked. Sometimes the primary work is not on specific manifestations, but on the underlying assumptions that govern all manifestations. If you believe yourself to be unworthy of good, that belief will sabotage every attempt to manifest particular good things. If you believe the world to be hostile and resources to be scarce, that belief will color every experience you have, regardless of what affirmations you speak or visualizations you practice. The feeling you must relax into is sometimes not the feeling of having a specific thing, but the feeling of being someone for whom abundance is natural and normal. The book of Proverbs offers wisdom that speaks directly to this point. Keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. Your heart, in this context, refers to your subconscious mind, your deep feeling nature, the place where your fundamental assumptions about yourself and life are stored. Out of this comes the issues of life, the circumstances, relationships, experiences, and outcomes that make up your daily existence. Guard this inner chamber carefully. Watch what feelings you allow to take root there, for whatever takes root in the heart will inevitably bear fruit in the world. Let me speak now of a particular technique that has proven extraordinarily effective for countless individuals who have applied it with sincerity and persistence. This is the method of the pre-sleep impression, and it deserves your careful attention because the moments before sleep represent your greatest opportunity for impressing the subconscious mind. As you prepare for sleep, allow your body to become completely relaxed. You may begin with your feet and move upward, consciously releasing tension from each part of your body in turn. Or you may simply take several deep breaths and allow the exhale to carry away all tightness and strain. The specific method matters less than the result. A body that is at ease, a mind that is quiet, a being that is receptive, in this relaxed state, constructing your imagination a brief scene that implies the fulfillment of your desire. I emphasize the word implies. You are not constructing a full movie with elaborate plot and dialogue. You are creating a simple, vivid moment that could only occur if your desire had already been fulfilled. If you desire wealth, you might imagine a friend congratulating you on your success. If you desire health, you might imagine engaging in an activity that would only be possible if you were vibrantly well. If you desire a loving relationship, you might imagine an intimate moment of connection that implies established partnership. The scene should be brief enough that you can repeat it easily, and it should involve you as a participant rather than an observer. You are not watching yourself from the outside. You are inside the experience, seeing through your own eyes, feeling with your own heart. And the most important element, more important than the visual details, more important than the words spoken, is a feeling the scene evokes. Let the scene generate within you the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Then let go of the scene itself and simply dwell in the feeling. As you drift toward sleep, holding this feeling gently without strain, you are impressing the subconscious mind at its most receptive. The conscious mind, which might argue that this is unrealistic or that you are fooling yourself, is fading into quietness. The door to the deeper mind stands open, and what you carry through that door becomes a seed that will grow into visible form in the coming days, weeks, or months. A businessman named George used this technique to transform his company during a period when bankruptcy seemed inevitable. George's industry had been disrupted by new technology. His major clients had left for competitors, and his bank was threatening to call in loans he had no way of repaying. Every morning he woke with dread. Every night he lay awake calculating his losses. His wife and employees looked to him for leadership, but he had no idea what to do. George learned of the pre-sleep technique and decided he had nothing to lose by trying it. Each night, he would relax his body completely and then imagine himself at a celebratory dinner with his wife. In this imaginary scene, they were toasting to the success of the company's turnaround. He could taste the wine. He could see his wife's relieved and joyful face. He could feel the emotion of having come through the crisis, not merely surviving but thriving. He did not ask how this would happen. He simply let himself feel that it had happened, and he carried this feeling with him as he drifted into sleep. What unfolded over the following months seemed to George like a series of coincidences too remarkable to be random. A former client called out of the blue, having heard of a new service that George happened to be perfectly positioned to provide. A young employee suggested a pivot in business strategy that George initially dismissed but later recognized as brilliant. An investor who had never before shown interest contacted George after reading an article about the very technology that had seemed to threaten his industry. Within 18 months, George's company was not only solvent but more profitable than it had ever been. The celebratory dinner he had imagined became a reality, and as he raised his glass to toast with his wife, he remembered the nights he had rehearsed this moment in his imagination, feeling it to be real when all external evidence suggested it was impossible. This is a testimony of law, not luck. George did not merely hope for a turnaround. He felt it to be so with such conviction that his subconscious mind accepted it as reality and proceeded to arrange circumstances accordingly. The subconscious does not know the difference between an imagined event and a real one, as long as the imagined event is imbued with feeling. What you feel to be true is what becomes true. This is the awesome responsibility and the magnificent opportunity that resides in your understanding of this principle. But let us address a concern that often arises at this point in the teaching. What happens when doubt creeps in? What do you do when you have practiced the feeling faithfully and yet your circumstances remain unchanged? What response should you make when friends or family question your approach, when the evidence of your senses seems to contradict everything you have been assuming? First, understand that doubt is natural and need not be catastrophic. Even the greatest practitioners of these principles have experienced moments of fear and uncertainty. The subconscious mind is impressed by the dominant pattern of your feeling, not by isolated instances of wavering. If you fall into doubt for an hour or a day, you have not erased all your previous work. Simply return to the practice. Pick up the feeling again. Do not waste time condemning yourself for doubting. Simply begin again with renewed dedication. Second, recognize that the apparent delay between inner impression and outer manifestation is not a sign of failure, but a natural part of the process. Seeds do not sprout the moment they are planted. There is a period of invisible growth, of underground preparation, before the shoot breaks through the soil. During this period, if you dig up the seed to see whether it is growing, you destroy the very process you are trying to encourage. Trust the law. Let the seed remain in the ground. Continue to water it with your feeling. The manifestation will come in its perfect timing. Third, let the doubts and questions of others pass by you like wind around a mountain. Their skepticism arises from their own consciousness, their own assumptions, their own limitations. It has nothing to do with you. You do not need their approval or understanding to work this law. You need only your own feeling, your own assumption, your own sustained conviction that what you have impressed upon the subconscious mind must manifest, because that is the nature of the law. The prophet Isaiah speaks of a promise that applies with full force to your present situation. I will go before thee and make the crooked places straight. I will break in pieces the gates of brass and cut in sunder the bars of iron. And I will give you the treasures of darkness and hidden riches of secret places. Consider these words carefully. The infinite power goes before you, preparing the way. Crooked places are made straight. Circumstances that seemed impossible to navigate become simple paths. Gates of brass and bars of iron, the obstacles that seemed impenetrable, are broken and cut through. Treasures of darkness, hidden riches of secret places, the abundance that you could not see because it was hidden from your conscious perception, is given to you, revealed and made available. All of this happens not through your conscious effort, but through the operation of a power that responds to your feeling. You set the destination through assumption. The power accomplishes a journey through means you could never have devised. Your part is to relax into the feeling. The rest is done for you. I am reminded of a woman named Rose who applied this principle in a situation that many would consider trivial, but which demonstrates the law with perfect clarity. Rose needed to sell her house in order to relocate for a new position she had accepted. The housing market in her area was depressed. Similar homes had been sitting unsold for many months. Her real estate agent warned her to expect a long wait and to be prepared to accept a price significantly below what she hoped for. Rose decided to apply what she had learned. Each evening, she would relax completely and imagine that the house was already sold. She did not try to visualize the buyer or imagine negotiation. She simply felt the relief and satisfaction of the sale being complete. She imagined herself in her new city, settled in her new home, grateful that the old house had sold quickly and easily. She carried this feeling with her as she drifted off to sleep. Within 3 weeks, a buyer appeared. This buyer had been searching in a different area, but had been prompted by what he described as a sudden intuition to look in Rose's neighborhood. The price he offered was not only above the depressed market value, but above what Rose had originally hoped for. The sale proceeded smoothly, closing well ahead of Rose's departure date. Her real estate agent, who had handled hundreds of transactions in that difficult market, told Rose that he had never seen anything quite like it. Was this extraordinary? In one sense, yes, it defied the expectations of everyone familiar with local conditions. In another sense, no, it was simply the law operating as it always does when properly engaged. Rose had impressed her subconscious mind with the feeling of the sale complete. Her subconscious mind, connected to infinite intelligence, had arranged circumstances, moved the buyer, created the intuition that guided him to her neighborhood. The law had worked. It always works. The Apostle Paul offers instruction that perfectly encapsulates the mental attitude required for successful manifestation. In his letter to the Philippians, he writes, "Be careful for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving let your requests be made known unto God. And the peace of God, which passeth all understanding, shall keep your hearts and minds." The phrase, "be careful for nothing," in the original language means be anxious about nothing. Do not approach your prayer, your request, your assumption, with worry and fear. Approach it instead with thanksgiving, which is the attitude of having already received. And what follows? Peace that surpasses understanding. Peace that does not depend on visible evidence. Peace that guards your heart and mind, protecting them from the invasion of doubt and fear. This is a relaxation we speak of. This is a feeling we are cultivating. Not the tension of desperate hope, but the peace of confident assumption. Not the anxiety of waiting, but the contentment of having. Not the stress of trying to make something happen, but the calm of knowing it is already done in consciousness, requiring only time to unfold in form. Let us speak of wealth specifically, for this is a subject that weighs heavily on the hearts of many who will hear these words. You may have been taught that money is the root of all evil, that spiritual people should not concern themselves with material abundance, that it is somehow nobler to be poor than to be rich. These teachings, however well-intentioned, represent a misunderstanding of both spiritual principle and practical reality. Money is a tool. Like any tool, it can be used for good or for ill. In the hands of a greedy person, money becomes an instrument of exploitation. In the hands of a generous person, money becomes an instrument of blessing. The money itself is neutral. What matters is the consciousness of the one who wields it. Furthermore, the universe is infinitely abundant. There is no shortage of supply at the level of spirit. Lack exists only in human consciousness, in the beliefs and assumptions that block the flow of good into individual experience. When you free your mind from the consciousness of lack, you do not take from anyone else. You simply open yourself to receive from an inexhaustible source that is more than enough for all. The scripture makes this explicitly clear. In Philippians, we read, "But my God shall supply all your need according to his riches in glory." Note that the supply comes according to divine riches, not according to economic conditions, not according to your employer's budget, not according to your current bank balance. The supply comes from infinite riches, which know no limitation. When you align your consciousness with this truth, you become a channel for abundance that flows from a source that can never run dry. A salesman named Marcus discovered this principle when his income had declined to the point where he could barely pay his rent. Marcus had tried everything the sales trainers recommended. He had made more calls, refined his pitch, studied his competition, worked longer hours. Nothing helped. The more desperately he pushed, the more customers seemed to resist. His fear of poverty had become a barrier that repelled the very good he was trying to attract. Then Marcus encountered the teaching of the relaxed feeling. He learned that his consciousness of lack was being communicated to his potential customers on a level beneath words. They sensed his desperation, and it made them uncomfortable. They did not trust him because he did not trust himself. His inner state was being reflected in his outer results. Marcus began the practice of pre-sleep impression. Each night, he would relax completely and feel what it would feel like to be a successful salesman. Not struggling, not striving, but naturally successful. He imagined receiving his commission check and feeling the satisfaction of having served his customers well while also providing abundantly for himself. He did not visualize specific sales or specific amounts. He simply dwelt in the feeling of being successful. The change did not come overnight, but it came. Marcus noticed that he began to feel different when he walked into a sales meeting. The desperation was gone, replaced by a quiet confidence. He was no longer trying to get something from his customers, but offering something to them. This shift was felt by everyone he met. Customers who had previously been resistant became receptive. Referrals increased. Within 6 months, Marcus had more than tripled his income. Within 2 years, he was one of the top performers in his company. What had changed? Marcus had not learned new sales techniques. He had not changed products or territories. He had changed his consciousness. He had relaxed into the feeling of being successful, and his subconscious mind had translated that feeling into a new pattern of behavior, a new quality of presence, a new set of circumstances. The outer world had conformed to the inner assumption. The law had operated as it always does. You possess the same power that Marcus discovered. You possess the same capacity for transformation that Eleanor and Samuel and Clara and Frederick and George and Rose all demonstrated. The power is not given to some and withheld from others. It is the birthright of every human being, waiting only to be recognized and employed. The question is not whether you have the power, but whether you will use it, whether you will commit to the practice of relaxing into the feeling of having received what you desire. Matthew chapter 7 contains a promise so direct, so unequivocal, that there is no room for misunderstanding. Ask, and it shall be given you. Seek, and ye shall find. Knock, and it shall be opened unto you. For every one that asketh receiveth, and he that seeketh findeth, and to him that knocketh it shall be opened. Every one who asks receives. Not some, not the worthy, not the lucky, everyone. This is a declaration of law, not the granting of occasional favor. The law cannot fail. It can only be applied or neglected, understood or misunderstood, engaged or ignored. Your asking is your feeling. Your seeking is your assumption. Your knocking is your sustained attention to the state you wish to inhabit. When you do these things with relaxed conviction, the answer must come. The finding must occur. The door must open. There is no power in the universe that can prevent it because there is no power in the universe greater than the law itself. As we draw toward the close of this teaching, I want to leave you with an understanding that will sustain you through any challenge, any delay, any appearance of failure. The understanding is this: you are never alone in this work. The infinite intelligence that created galaxies and atoms, that orchestrates the movement of planets and the beating of your heart, that holds the universe in perfect order moment by moment. This intelligence is your partner in manifestation. When you impress your subconscious mind with a feeling, you are not hoping that something out there might respond. You are activating a connection that is as real and as reliable as any physical law. You are sending a signal that must be answered because the universe cannot fail to respond to properly applied principle. The feeling of isolation that may sometimes accompany this practice, the sense that you are trying to accomplish something great with only your limited resources, is itself an illusion that the practice will dispel. As you continue to relax into the feeling of fulfilled desires, you will become increasingly aware of a presence greater than yourself, a wisdom that guides your steps, a power that accomplishes what you could never accomplish alone. This awareness is not mystical fantasy. It is the recognition of what has always been true, now becoming conscious in your experience. Many who have embraced these teachings speak of a growing sense of peace that pervades their daily life. Not because their problems have all disappeared, but because they have discovered a way of relating to problems that transforms them from threats into opportunities. When a challenge arises, instead of falling into fear and reaction, they ask, what feeling would I experience if this challenge were already resolved? And they relax into that feeling, trusting the Lord to bring about the resolution in ways they could never have planned. This is a new way of living. It is not passive, for it requires the most active engagement of your imagination and feeling. It is not escapist, for it directly addresses the circumstances of your life and transforms them. It is not delusional, for it operates according to principles as reliable as any in the physical sciences. It is simply a recognition of what you truly are, a creative being whose thoughts and feelings shape reality, and a decision to use this creative capacity deliberately rather than haphazardly. The journey upon which you have embarked by listening to these words is the most important journey you will ever take. It leads from bondage to freedom, from lack to abundance, from confusion to clarity, from fear to faith. The path is simple, though it requires persistence. The practice is gentle, though it demands consistency. The rewards are beyond anything your present imagination can conceive, though they will come to seem natural and inevitable once you have claimed them. Relax into the feeling of already having received what you desire. Do this the night before you sleep. Do it again tomorrow night, and the night after that, and every night until the feeling becomes as familiar as your own breath. Watch as circumstances begin to shift. Notice how opportunities appear. Observe how people and resources seem drawn to you by invisible cords. Recognize that you are witnessing the law in operation, responding to your changed consciousness with changed conditions. You are the author of your experience. You always have been, though you may not have known it. Now you know, and with this knowledge comes both the power and the responsibility to create the life you have always sensed was possible. Not someday, not for someone else, but for you, beginning now. Remember that these teachings offered here are shared for your education and inspiration. They represent original contemplation upon the general principles of subconscious mind philosophy that have uplifted countless individuals across generations. As with all wisdom teachings, you are encouraged to apply your own discernment, to take what resonates with your heart, and to put these ideas into practice through your own experience. No teaching can replace your personal journey. No word can substitute for your own application and discovery. What is offered here is a map. The territory must be explored by you, with your own steps, guided by your own inner wisdom. May these principles serve you well. May the feeling of abundance become your natural dwelling place. May every desire of your heart find a fulfillment in the perfect timing of infinite intelligence. And may you always remember that within you lies a power greater than any circumstance, a wisdom deeper than any problem, a love more expansive than any fear. This power, this wisdom, this love, it is not separate from you. It is the very essence of what you are. Go now into your practice with confidence. Relax into the feeling, and receive what you have imagined. The universe awaits your assumption.